Today on the Shrewd Dudes podcast, we are going to talk about a few different things. And this week in satire, we're going to talk about who will they choose to replace Tucker Carlson? Because that is the question. What can be done? What can you do? Will you be next? Speaking of, that's actually our rant of the week. Talking about, will you be next? Who will they cancel? Who will they come for? Everyone. Yeah, especially since they passed Bill C-11.
You can tell there was zero rehearsal here.
Zero rehearsal. Shush. Anyways, in the Shrewd Check, we are going to talk about Florida and how they canceled the Pride Parade because of an anti-lewd law. That should raise some questions. And then someone made a video about how terrible it is for LGBTQ members to live there.
This video basically summarizes all of the lies about Florida. I'm like, this is a good place to do a little nitpicking.
Do a little fact checking.
Little fact checking.
And then finally in our weekly exposure / weekly highlight, we're going to talk about pedophilia.
That's always a fun topic.
Definitely on the rise, and it is coming into your state legislature and a state legislature near you.
Won't somebody think of the children?
Yeah, damn straight. They should be thinking of the children, but they're not. All of that and more. And I realize, yes, I have messed things up in terms of skewing it off to the left. I will fix that for next video. I apologize. Everything is shifted off to the left by
oh yeah, I just noticed
10% of the video.
Way to go, man.
I know. I'll fix that for next video.
The curse continues.
Minor inconvenience at best.
Let's hope that's the worst.
Let's do the intro to shut Danny up.
Go for it.
And now I've moved things out of alignment. There we go. So, it's been a couple days. It's been a couple days since we had our show on Tuesday. There were some tech issues on Tuesday. I did edit the video at the end so that it sort of made sense. And then we just kind of left out the last tiny bit because there was nothing that I could do. And we were already very late into the evening. That being said, I know interesting things happened to you, Danny, in the last couple of days. We are not going to talk about it on air because it's just a little too sketch. A little too.
Oh, but I want to rant. I just want to do a full rant monologue.
I know you want to rant, but it's inappropriate.
Okay.
It's inappropriate to rant about that.
Can we put it on the weekly exposure?
No. We cannot put it on the weekly exposure.
Okay, good to know.
That would be bad. We would get people talking.
Yeah, exactly. All right, go on.
So, for those probably not wondering, the Leafs played tonight. They did lose. It was close, but they could not pull through at the end. I'm hoping for Saturday. Oh gosh, I'm hoping for Saturday. If they lose Saturday, the series is pretty much over. If they take it to another Game 7. Yep.
Please pray for Steven. He's going to have a lot of close calls, heart attacks, the whole thing.
I'm going to be so
next
angry.
Week. It's going to be so sweating. It's going to be interesting.
Yep. Anyways.
You can do it, buddy. You can do it. I believe in you.
Yes. All right. Well, let's start into the show. Let's open up with this prayer of shrewdness and let's get into things.
Launch it. Although he did promise me that I could read it this week.
All right, go.
The prayer of shrewdness. Our most merciful and just Father in heaven, we pray over the words we're about to speak. May we be your mouthpieces this day. Use us to speak the truth fearlessly. Guide us that we may speak wisely. But as we have been shown mercy, let us also offer love and peace, even to those who curse and abhor us. Amen, brother. that we may be instruments of your love in our growing, ever darker world. Amen. Praise Jesus.
Oh boy.
Actually, I realized that reading it in the Martin Luther King voice makes that last part kind of be like, I don't know if that's.
I know, it makes it sound real bad. Makes it sound real bad.
Makes the last part be like, oh, I don't know if we want to say Docky. Docky is such a terrible word for this kind of monologue.
Oh my gosh. You literally just said darky.
You gotta have some fun with it, man.
Gotta have some fun.
I'm talking about like Sharpies. I have dark
Sharpies.
I'm talking about my colored markers. That's gonna be my excuse.
Well, Danny and his shenanigans will be my undoing. So
no, I think your tech issues will be our undoing. Ultimately,
I have abandoned. So up until recently, I've switched back and forth between using a program known as XSplits and a program known as OBS.
OBS.
And OBS is much more user-friendly and doesn't do crazy things to my computer.
That's true.
But XSplit had its perks. I will give it that. It had its perks. But OBS just it's more intuitive, and it's easier to figure out when there are problems. So,
but it has some nice things. Let's hope it works.
Let's hope it works. Exactly. So with that being said, let's move on to kind of the funny stories from funny videos, funny incidents, funny things. And one of the things we usually always open up with is Freedom Tunes, because it is just sensational. So from Freedom Tunes, why do you care so much? Here we go.
What is going on here?
Why do you care so much? I sure do love baking for my husband.
Yeah, perfectly illustrates the normal person's reaction to this. It's like, no, I'm just going to turn around because you look like a freaking weirdo.
Well, this is what they do. Like, I know. It's a double. It's the ultimate double standard where they basically, like, whenever you like point out like they're doing something terrible, they're like, "Why do you care so much?" That's what they did on when Matt Walsh was on Dr. Phil, and like that was the first question they always asked: "Why do you care so much?" I'm like, "Oh, I'd like to answer that because I cared." Like he gave a great answer. But then the same people who accuse you of oh, you're weirdly obsessed with this, are the same people that will completely freak out of their minds when something that they don't like suddenly happens.
Suddenly shows up.
Yeah, perfect analogy. I love that Freedom Tunes does it. By the way, have you seen that Seamus is back on Timcast?
Yes, I have seen that.
Yeah. He's
and
totally
all of the burns that they send to Luke.
It is so funny. I'm like, oh, I miss this man. This guy's the bomb. Like he literally, if he became a regular, I know he's not going, but if he became a regular on Timcast IRL, like, oh, that show would be 10 times better. Like, he is so fun to listen to.
Yeah, and he does great voices.
He does. He really does. What's the next thing we got, Steven?
All right. So the next thing we got is, once it loads up, Not the Bee. Think you can do a decent seagull impression? Have I got the competition for you?
Yeah, it's a video. You got to play the video. It's really funny. I saw this. I'm like, dang.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I haven't yet. So this would be my live reaction. I have no idea what this is supposed to be coming.
This is Steven's live reaction. Full screen it.
Well, she's certainly locked in.
She just doesn't stop.
Seagulls do not have the best reputation. They steal your ice cream, poop everywhere. But that shouldn't give the birds a bad reputation, right? Well,
Yes.
one Belgian coastal town thinks not, so they hold a seagull imitating contest. partly aimed at trying to change the image of what many think are just pests.
We all know that seagulls are often
Guy actually has
despised
like an
by the
actual
public.
outfit. Crazy.
They don't like them because the droppings fall all over. They open litter bins. They pick ice creams and sandwiches. And we thought, why not getting more sympathy for those seagulls, because they are part of the coast. There's no coast without seagulls.
So how does one even get involved in such a contest?
I study theater, and for a school job, we had to look for an animal, and I just got fascinated by the seagull. So I started practicing, and my friend said, "Oh,
Well, no,
that's so
he's the
nice.
winner.
Why don't you?" And then they sent me these links of the
No, she was second place.
And then I thought, why not? This is so much fun.
15 out of 20 points go to how well participants mimic a seagull's call. 5 go to their posture and behavior. Meanwhile, this Dutchman accomplished what he came for. First-timer Jarmo, a 21-year-old architecture student from the Netherlands, beat out 49 others.
He won.
And took the crown for best seagull imitation.
Nicely done, bro. Nicely done.
Yeah.
Well done. The seagull man. Look how happy people are. They're just
The
like, yeah!
seagull man.
Seagull!
Yeah. No, I'll never get that excited about a seagull. Never.
I mean, they're adorable. And they steal your ice cream sandwich, so can't be that bad. I thought that was pretty funny, though. I was watching that and like, yeah, that's just dumb. It's a good way to start
a good way to start the show.
That's right. You start the show with levity, and then it's just like, up.
And then you go straight into. All right. Well, let's continue with the levity, and let's talk about the 10 perfect candidates to replace Tucker Carlson.
Oh, these are going to be good.
So the world of political media is still reeling from the shocking news of Tucker Carlson being let go. But as with anything in the fast-paced business of cable news, the show must go on. Fox News has yet to reveal any plans regarding who or what may fill Carlson's vacated nightly primetime spot, but the channel will surely attempt to hit a home run with its decision. The Babylon Bee has compiled a list of absolutely perfect candidates for Tucker's replacement.
Perfect.
And we'll do 1, 2, 1, 2. Number 1, Lizzo.
Of course.
Yeah, this is horrifying.
I mean, she already sounds like a seagull. So
she does sound like a seagull.
You're halfway there.
Yep, and she does have the ego to be a primetime cable news star.
She will steal your ice cream sandwich too if you leave it unattended.
I just really hope she doesn't poop on us.
Yeah, that would be a gigantic.
Lizzo, she's landing massive cameos in shows like The Mandalorian, so it'd be a big deal for Fox to land such a huge, very huge star.
I think again, you think they're alluding to something. Number 2, David French. He's the fearless, stalwart guardian of true conservatism. By the way, if you know who David French is, I cannot stand that guy.
Oh, he is so annoying.
The worst.
Yep.
Anyway, speaking of the worst.
Number 3, a robot anchorman who will thoughtlessly read the teleprompter verbatim. No opinions, just push the narrative. Got it.
Oh, that's good. ChatGPT strikes again. Number 4, a Tomahawk missile with an American flag painted on it. America. Yeah, I like that.
See,
just goes right into the screen.
Just like the entire airtime would just be like the Tomahawk. You just have a Tomahawk missile flying across the sky, and you have somebody film it in an F-40.
Yep.
Or an F-22 Raptor, and you just have them filming it with their phone camera, and then every single night it hits a different target.
Yeah, you see the actual targeting cameras. It comes down, and then like finally they have like one like they said like Nancy Pelosi's house. You're like, yeah.
Yep. Number 5, a black mermaid. When you're getting rid of a white male, you replace him with a black female. Those are the rules.
It is true. That is true. Adam Kinzinger. If Fox wants to go the emotional tearjerker route, there's no one better suited to be on television. It is very true. Very true.
Yep. Hot blonde female anchor Tucker Carlson. Wow, she's gorgeous. Where have we seen her before? There was also a rendition of this in the other Freedom Tunes video.
Oh yeah,
that you posted.
There's a female version. Okay.
Where it wasn't a female version of this; it was a Hispanic version, and it was like Tuckerello Carsona. It was like and he's like, Hola, welcome to Tacarello Carcelo tonight.
Of course, that would be really, really good. All right, number 8, Volodymyr Zelensky. This would be the best for the good of Ukraine, America.
Yeah, okay.
Not bad.
Not bad.
Not the best, but not bad. Not bad.
Liz
I
Cheney.
learned from the best.
Okay, Liz Cheney. Fox would be silly not to hire the most popular politician in history.
Super popular. She's not like a professor in the university now. And finally, John Bolton's mustache. Facial hair is still in style, and this facial hair is on a mission to start some wars.
Because no one can start wars like John Bolton.
John Bolton. The guy's got skills. That's all we're saying.
But it's just not skills that can pay the bills.
Very expensive bills.
Very expensive bills.
That's right.
Very dangerous bills.
All right.
But
so,
yeah, that is this week in satire. So because it's related, we'll be kind of jumping in right into the rant of the week.
Bring it.
So let's see if I can cue this up now that we're back on OBS. Ready?
Red alert.
I have done it.
He's back.
I have done it.
Yeah. I have the power.
From Newsweek, Tucker Carlson's first Fox News video goes viral. So let's just watch this. There's only 1 minute and 18 of this video, but it's
pretty good.
It's worth watching.
Yep.
And of course, I accidentally hit the mute button.
Carlson, one of the first things you realize when you step outside the noise for a few days is how many genuinely nice people there are in this country. Kind and decent people, people who really care about what's true, and a bunch of hilarious people also. A lot of those. It's got to be the majority of the population, even now. So that's heartening. The other thing you notice when you take a little time off is how unbelievably stupid most of the debates you see on television are. They're completely irrelevant. They mean nothing. War, civil liberties, emerging science, demographic change, corporate power, natural resources. When was the last time you heard a legitimate debate about any of those issues? It's been a long time. Debates like that are not permitted in American media. When honest people say what's true, calmly and without embarrassment, they become powerful. At the same time, the liars who've been trying to silence them shrink, and they become weaker. That's the iron law of the universe. True things prevail. Where can you still find Americans saying true things? There aren't many places left, but there are some, and that's enough. As long as you can hear the words, there is hope. See you soon.
That's good, man. That's good.
Yeah. Earlier
there we go. All right, so basically, here's the thing that I found interesting about this story. Now, Tucker Carlson is an anomaly among, most, conservative commentators. He's an anomaly in the sense that most of the most famous commentators we know of are usually on the internet. They're not on cable news TV. All right. So he was kind of a weird kind of anomaly in the sense that of all the major personalities in conservatism, he was the most prominent because he was on a major news network and he was kind of carrying the team. Secondly, Tucker Carlson was also an anomaly in the fact that he was also blowing everyone out of the water. If you look at any of the ratings for major news networks, he was consistently he was out of reach. He was so far out of reach of every network. He had 3 million per night, and the next closest was I think maybe MSNBC, and they had under a million or around 1 million or something like that. So they were nobody was even close. And then now he's been ousted. Now a lot of the theories are why has he been ousted? The theories are what are the theories you first, Stephen, of why he's been ousted?
Well, one of the primary ones that I've heard is that Rupert Murdoch did not like his commentary that he made on a speech to the Heritage Foundation about just praying. It wasn't about saying that you need to pray to save your soul. It was just like, pray for our nation because prayer is good. And Rupert Murdoch apparently freaked out about that. So that's one of the big ones that I've heard.
I've heard another one that people said that Rupert Murdoch was not liking how Tucker Carlson was, I guess, how close he was to his wife. That was another theory that was on Timcast, and I was like, I don't know about that one. What's some other ones? There's been quite a few.
Well, some of the more ridiculous ones are related to, like he got fired because of his text messages about the Dominion voting scandal.
Yep. Or like that he's a liability because of the Dominion voting scandal. Yep. That's one theory. Another theory that was floating around, some people speculated, is like, what if he's moving to Florida and ending because obviously, like, maybe he's going to be Trump's vice president. A lot of people were like, that'd be kind of cool if that was the case. Wumpy. But ultimately, Trucker's going to be fine. He's a very popular guy. His audience will likely go with him. And obviously, Fox News is really like floundering because of his absence. They're going to have a tough time holding on to their audience. However, here's the main thing that I thought of this week when I thought about Tucker Carlson is that for those of us who are not paying close attention, this just seems like an anomaly in a long list of people who have been conservatives who've been hit. And if you actually take this year as a whole, like in the last couple of months, there has been a very weird trend of a lot of conservative pundits that have been basically ousted. And some people are starting to notice, like a lot of commentators are like, there is something weird going on. Like there's a lot of patterns here of conservatives being hit hard. Obviously, the most obvious one, that the most clearly the biggest news that launched it all was James O'Keefe.
Yes.
James O'Keefe. So, Stephen, James O'Keefe, recap that really quick. What was that?
Okay, so O'Keefe, most of you probably know, O'Keefe founded the Project Veritas news organization, which did a lot of undercover journalism. They still do. They still have some decent projects that they're working on. I think they recently did one about transgenderism in schools in Pennsylvania, I believe. And so he founded that organization, and then he was ousted from Project Veritas by the board.
Under very suspicious and suspect.
After he did a fairly massive expose on a company that rhymes with Lizer. So, yeah, that was a big one. And now he has his own media group called OMG or O'Keefe Media Group. Yes. And he seems to be doing all right.
Yeah, so like that was a big story when
it was a big one.
But then after that, then you have then you had Steven Crowder. Now, the reason why I mentioned that is like Steven Crowder suddenly got into a giant mix with the Daily Wire, and that was a massive, infighting, and it kind of like ended with both the Daily Wire and Latimer Crowder getting a whole bunch of infighting, but also people that supported one stopped supporting the other. So it was kind of like a weird situation where a lot of people were concerned, like, what's going on here. Then you had Eliza Blue, the whole Eliza Blue incident with Tim Pool, and that blew up like crazy.
Yep.
That was big for a while. And again, Tim Pool got wrangled into that, and that was just very bizarre. Tim Pool even felt like it was almost like something staged. Like people sometimes do these things that essentially are for publicity stunts to get name notoriety. And so that was kind of crazy. And then after that, you've had obviously the big one, Donald Trump. Donald Trump got hit, and suddenly he's been in a historic move. He was indicted by a New York grand jury, and now there's speculation that he's going to be basically attacked and relentlessly targeted all the way up till the next election. So that's a big, huge hit that's happened. And in the last couple of weeks, there's been a couple of notable hits. Most notable of all is Matt Walsh, who was absolutely hit with one of the most brutal personal attacks. He was basically hacked. Most of his personal information was compromised, and pretty much everyone started dunking on him. And like this information was leaked to Wired magazine, and that was obviously an attempt to take him off the air. But then you have Matt Walsh was they basically took him, demonetized him from YouTube. Then you have Michael Knowles, who was the subject of a massive campaign to try to accuse him of calling for the genocide of transgender people. You had Brett Cooper, whose TikTok was completely and totally annihilated. You have Nate Silver, who's where was he from, Stephen? Do you know?
What was it? Project. It was he founded a thing called 270 to Win.
Yeah, he's a political strategist, like a polling kind of strategist. He's kind of a big deal in he's not like super known for his politics, but he's kind of a prominent figure in elections. And then finally you have Riley Gaines, who prominent new voice standing up for women, who was basically brutally terrorized and attacked in what was a obvious criminal act. And then you have Rumble being hit by DDoS attacks, and then even very recently, Steven Crowder basically somebody leaked the idea that he's got a divorce, and it was not his choice. Obviously, there's a question as to who did it, but yeah. So altogether, in the last couple of weeks, there's just been a just long line of people that are being hit. So the question is this all just random, unrelated things, or is there something perhaps more coordinated and more purposeful going on? And I'll put that in connection with one thing. Are they preparing for 2024? And I'll put the question to you, Stephen.
Well, it's obvious that there's some form of effort to try and make anybody who's pushing an actual conservative message to be pushed to the fringe. Mm-hmm. We saw this, of course, with individuals like Alex Jones. We saw this with other individuals like Marjorie Taylor Greene, and even with Trump himself when it came to Twitter before, of course, all hail Elon took over. And deplatforming, yes, it does kind of have a brief stint where you have a massive rise in popularity, but there will be a difficulty for a lot of people to follow you, especially those of the older generation. When it comes to Tucker Carlson, he had 3.5 million, give or take, every night on cable news. But if he switches to an online podcast platform such as YouTube or Rumble or even Twitch, there are people in the older generations, especially if you're talking about boomers, who will have a difficult time finding him because he will not be on any sort of mainstream news platform. And I think he knows, and we all know at this point, that Tucker Carlson will not have the same connection if he's using the same type of reach. Mm-hmm. And of course, like Tim Pool was talking about this today, there's a difference between having straight viewers and having consistent viewers. Mm-hmm. Whereas Tucker Carlson was often having repeat viewers, and it'd be like the same person over and over and over again watching the show. Mm-hmm. Whereas a show like Tim Pool's, every single day, it's pretty much like a new set of viewers. There's a few viewers that are the same, but there's a large segment of the viewers that are different. Mm-hmm. And so you're not going to have a group of people which are going to be like your diehard fans if you switch purely to an online following.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like one of the reasons why I thought it was interesting when a couple of people were mentioning it, it's like, okay, so look at it this way. Now, and of course, we're going to use the code that we always use instead of the 20 foot. It's not the 20. It's the 2024 bake sale. So when it comes to the 2024 bake sale, which we're pretty much looking forward to, we know that there was obviously a lot of concerning things that happened, but way back in the day, back in 2020. Obviously, you're not crazy. They call you a conspiracy theorist, but that's just a euphemism for calling you crazy. You're not crazy. It is not crazy to notice what was right in your face. Okay. Now and of course the Time magazine article that laid out like how they basically like all the ways that they essentially all the different methods that they used to make sure that the preferred outcome that they wanted happened. And even like recently, you heard about that thing that happened recently, Stephen, where who was it, the director of the FBI or somebody else? Basically, it came out that like he very clearly colluded in disinformation in making sure that that the whole story about like the Hunter Biden laptop was going to be like like basically buried under the misinformation that it was Russian propaganda.
Yep.
That was intentionally coordinated by the highest levels of our government or the American government. And so the question isn't will they cheat again at the 2024 bake sale? The question is, are they like how are they going to do it?
Mhm.
Because there's going to be some ways that they're going to basically be able to repeat, some ways they won't be able to repeat. But do you really throw it past them that they're not going to try to find a new way if they can to get the results that they want and to try to manipulate the outcomes? Because we already saw the anomalies that happened in Arizona's bake sale.
Yep.
So, it's not bake sale; it's a muffin sale.
Yeah, muffin sale.
Oh, okay. I thought it was bake sale. Whatever. Muffin sale, bake sale, whatever. But yeah, so like the question ultimately is, are they trying to get Tucker out so that they don't have Tucker, because Tucker was the only one like really speaking the truth in news broadcasts. Are they trying to get rid of James O'Keefe or trying to weaken his organization so that he can do less exposés leading up to the election? And are they trying to like take out all of the major voices? Is the question. Now, we don't know. Like, obviously, we have to speculate based on what we see, but it is curious, and it's something that we should definitely look at because, hey, like it's been a weird trend this year, and people have noticed. They're like, that there's something weird that's going on. Why are all these things happening? And don't believe that these are just organic. Like a lot of these things can be manipulated depending on the actors. Like when I looked at the whole situation with the James O'Keefe, I remember I listened to everything I could about that, and all of it sounds incredibly nefarious. All of it. I was like, dang, that guy got absolutely
Rug under the
railroaded.
stick. Yep.
Right. So all of this sounds very suspicious. Keep your eyes open. I'm not sure what the reason is, but yeah, it's concerning. Stephen, any thoughts on
No.
Tucker Carlson or the things?
No, things like you really have to be like it's no longer, oh, I'm only accountable if they let me.
Yeah.
Like the power that a lot of these institutions, that a lot of these establishment figures have is greater than you think. And they have tendrils in organizations. Like we talked last week about the Matt Walsh hack.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some kind of perhaps linkages to people to an element or an insider inside the Daily Wire that granted this hacker access to like a bit of a shadow connection to Matt Walsh's phone.
Yeah.
And so it's like these people have these dark powers, these dark establishment figures that are working for not the forces of good, but this is the forces of evil in more ways than just physical. But there are people in almost every institution, and it makes it really, really difficult to know who to trust.
Mm-hmm. There are forces at work in all these institutions that, believe it or not, it's the Brett Kavanaugh thing all over again. Anybody who saw the Brett Kavanaugh circus knows and saw that the people in positions of power, both in the American government and media and even like positions behind the where you can see there's a lot of people out there who have the approach by any means necessary, and the end always justifies the means.
Yeah.
So we are working in a system, not necessarily that a system that is automatically fraudulent, but we're working in a system where we're working with bad actors who have no qualms and no problems doing bending every rule, like manipulating every avenue in order to get what they want.
Yep.
So keep your eyes open.
Alrighty. So now we will transition to the news you may have missed to talk about the news that you may have missed.
Oh, interesting. Double speak.
It's always double speak.
Take-
Tony. It's always
away, Steve.
double speak.
That's right.
All right. So starting off from the Toronto Star, Mattel unveils new Barbie with Down syndrome. So a new Barbie doll was introduced by Mattel on Tuesday, the first one to represent a person with Down syndrome as a part of its efforts to make the brand more inclusive. Created to allow even more children to see themselves in Barbie, as well as to have Barbie reflect the world around them, the doll is meant to inspire children to tell more stories through play. Doll play outside of a child's own lived experience can teach understanding and build a greater sense of empathy, leading to a more accepting world, said Lisa McKnight, Mattel's executive vice president and global head of Barbie and dolls, in a statement. We're proud to introduce a Barbie doll with Down syndrome to better reflect the world around us and further our commitment to celebrating inclusion through play. All right.
That sounds pretty good, eh?
Yeah, like, it sounds good. I know that, like, Steven Crowder tried to paint this as a very woke decision, which I do not agree with, that this is a woke decision.
I disagree, too. I don't think that this is necessarily, like, bad.
Like, this is not trying to make an exclusive... Like, this is not diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is a truly discriminated against group in society, and... Mattel is actually trying to make an effort to appeal to them. Oh, Conquer Worm.
Or at least to provide a doll that they like.
Yeah, I don't like Winnipeg's chances, Conquer Worm. I'm really sad that the Leafs lost tonight. So
yeah, he was so sad. He was crying.
Yeah,
he was pouring out tears before it was.
Anyways,
it was quite sad.
But yeah, like I actually really going back to this thing with Mattel and with Barbie, it is actually a very strong statement in support of those with Down syndrome, especially considering our modern society. Especially more European nations have effectively called for an all-out war in terms of eugenics on Down syndrome. Like, what was it? I think it was Finland.
Yeah,
Finland's we have effectively we've eradicated Down syndrome, and it's like, yeah, but you haven't eradicated it through like treating people with Down syndrome and like making them healthy or preventing it or trying to incorporate them into normal society in a better way. No, killing them. That's it.
Yeah.
Killing them.
Yeah.
That's not fixing or eradicating Down syndrome in a decent manner. That's like saying we've like eradicated Judaism. How did we do it? We killed them all.
We killed all the Jews. That's how we did it. Hey.
Yeah.
Not so great. But the last thing is, I think it's good when doll companies create dolls that appeal to as many kids as possible. If you created a Filipino doll, great. If you're a Filipino girl, that's probably going to appeal to you. If you create South African doll, like from a girl from South Africa, sure, they might like it. I think it's great. I don't think that's necessarily bad. I think it's bad when they infuse wokeism, like a pregnant girl or a pregnant man in Barbie. That would be terrible. So yeah, as long as they're not doing that, I'm good.
As long as they're not doing that.
Okay, let's go to the Daily Mail story. So this is Daily Mail. Now Maybelline faces calls for a boycott after sponsorship tie-up with trans influencer Dylan Mulvaney. Dylan Mulvaney posted a TikTok video last month applying the brand's makeup. I don't know if you got the video there. Or
yep.
To show how silly this is. Oh. Got any sound? Oh, I guess there's no sound on that.
Yeah, there's no sound on it. That's weird.
That's really well. Just probably the Daily Mail didn't put any sound on it. Okay, so here's the thing with Dylan Mulvaney.
Breaking news! It's.
I guess it's just that video. The other ones.
Okay, so here's the update. Okay, so Maybelline is the latest company to be threatened with a public boycott after sponsoring transgender social media influencer Dylan Mulvaney, 26, to post a video online promoting its makeup. In the Maybelline promotion video posted on TikTok, Mulvaney is makeup-free before he gets glam with eyeshadow, lipstick, and other products. Video was posted by Mulvaney approached his 100th day of publicly identifying as a woman. It comes as another major commercial brand, Anheuser-Busch's Bud Light, is dealing with a boycott of his beer due to his partnership with Mulvaney the brand has seen sales slump by 17%, as well as 2 high-ranking marketing execs on leave. So, big thing about this story is the Budweiser boycott is quickly looking like it is the most successful boycott we may have ever seen, or at least have seen in this century. Essentially, it is. We're not going to see the full results until later on when we see the quarterly results and all that. But already we're seeing a lot of on the ground effects. The fact that Maybelline is now being threatened with a boycott, and some other companies as well.
Yeah.
It ultimately, this is leading to Mulvaney is now and in the future will be seen as a net liability for a lot of these companies. If you choose Mulvaney, you are basically looking at a potential boycott of your product. And remember, one of the effects of the Budweiser boycott, the Bud Light boycott, is that a lot of their brand has now changed in image, and that's why it's so successful. Because people are looking like men, like regular 40-year-old men at a bar. They're like, "You're drinking that beer? That's for effeminate men and all that." People are like.
I did think it would be there would be issues because you can't just go around downtown doing this. Mm-hmm. It'd be entertaining to go and do a man on the street video and say and just have a case of Bud Light and be like, how would you react if I gave you this?
Mm-hmm.
Because it'd be interesting to see people's reactions, because some people would be like, why is this why do you think this is a big deal? And other people would be like, get that crap away from me.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be interesting as just a small snippet video, but there's a lot of things we could do. Anyways, moving on to the next segment. So DeSantis Super PAC hits back at Nikki Haley following veiled Disney jab. Mickey Haley. Haley said Wednesday she would welcome a Disney move from Florida to her home state of South Carolina. So the Super PAC supporting Governor Ron DeSantis for president hit back at former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley following what appeared to be a veiled jab over his aggressive approach to Disney's woke antics in the state. In a viral post on social media, Never Back Down responded to Haley's appearance on Fox News America Reports early in the day, in which she invited Disney to move its operation to South Carolina, the state where she was once governor, from Florida. She said her state is anti-woke, but she would welcome the six-figure number of jobs the company would bring with it. A video included in what it said were clips of Disney officials touting the company's use of LGBTQIA characters, a not at all secret gay agenda, and trans, asexual, and bisexual characters, and attempted to tie Haley with that highly scrutinized side of the company. So I think this is the footage from the Twitter post.
We have many LGBTQIA characters in our stories.
My not at all secret gay agenda.
Canonical trans characters, canonical asexual characters, canonical bisexual characters.
I was just wherever I could, just basically adding queerness.
To give information about gender affirmation procedures.
The things that we believe that we're trying to put into the shows.
Targeting Gen Z and millennials.
Kids who are transitioning.
I'd like to shine a spotlight on a fellow queen who knows a thing or two about creating an epic Disney Plus inspired look.
If Disney would like to move their hundreds of thousands of jobs to South Carolina and bring the billions of dollars with them, I'll let them know. I'll be happy to meet them in South Carolina.
Groomers! Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Nikki Haley. Mm-hmm. I understand, I understand why she did it, but the problem is that, you cannot win a battle, especially of good and evil, but you cannot win a battle of right and left if you're going to say, well, it's okay that you're doing all these things, it's okay that you're really trying to appeal to children, to brainwash them, to try and mutilate them, to do terrible things to them. But as long as you make us some money, that's very kind of
it's
Bush.
The ultimate sellout.
That's Bush conservatism. That's Bush republicanism, and that's what Trump was. Trump was an outright rejection of that, and then Nikki Haley, because she realizes that DeSantis and Trump are kind of battling in the Trump MAGA wing of the Republican Party in terms of pushing more to the right and pushing more for conservative values and pushing away from wokeism. She's saying, well, maybe if we embrace a little bit of wokeism, then we can focus more on the money-making aspect of republicanism, which didn't really allow us to win, but like we kind of got half-hearted victories some of the time.
It's the ultimate sellout. It's like that lady from from Congress, who I forget her name, like she Nancy Mace. She basically went on some news site and said like, well, if conservatives would stop making a big deal of abortion, maybe we win more often. And I'm like, you're a freaking sellout. This is what conservatives don't like. They don't like sellouts. They don't like people who sell them out to like for money or something like that. So yeah, Nikki Haley is kind of shooting herself in the foot. I don't think she's going to go far in any kind of like primary. Anyways, let's go to second Fox News story. Illegal aliens who are LGBTQ plus, minus sign ampersand, apostrophe, PH, whatever else, may not be detained under new Democrats' new bill. Democrats said current detention rules strip aliens of their humanity and due process. That's terrible. Dozens of Democrats in the House and Senate introduced legislation this week that would make it harder to hold illegal aliens in custody if they qualify as a vulnerable person, such as those who are gay, lesbian, transgender, who don't speak... Are you freaking kidding me? Who don't speak English? Oh my God, that is nuts. Or who meet other definitions of the term under the bill. You basically, all you have to do to sneak past the border is like, no hablo inglés. Done. Get through. Like, yeah, we're not going for open borders. That's just silly talk. I'm like, sure you're not. Okay.
Those who don't speak English. Sir, what do you have to say about entering America?
Yo quiero Taco Bell.
Death to America.
Yeah, pretty much. That's English. Oh, my. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
Exactly.
Okay, the dignity of... I'm not going to keep reading this. Basically, it's open borders. This is open borders in a legislation bill. I'm sorry. The Democrats are basically... They hate America. They want open borders. They don't want America to exist. They're trying to destroy it from the inside. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else you can say. The Democrats hate America. They want to destroy it. They want open borders. So there's your proof.
Yep.
I mean, this law pretty much shows what they're all up against. So.
Oh yeah, big time.
I don't know.
Big
time. Y'all can say.
Oh no, there's not much else that can be said.
Not
let's
really.
just move on to the next one.
Pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, pretty cut and dry. Video: CDC director admits for the first time that vaccinated people can spread COVID. Oh really? Walensky, who has recently had COVID despite being 5 times vaccinated, claimed that her own earlier statements about the virus not being carried by vaccinated people and COVID now being a pandemic of the unvaccinated no longer apply because of an evolution of science. That statement is no longer correct with the Omicron variants we have now, she told lawmakers. Let's just watch that now. In your face, Walensky.
Take that. Yeah, that's right.
What? Okay, I'm not getting any proper sound out of that.
Really?
Unless there's something...
Unfortunate.
Like, could you hear it properly?
I heard it, yeah. That was fine.
Okay, hold on. I'm just checking if there's...
It's just you.
I'm double checking if there's, like, another video.
Last night, my girl...
Nope. Yeah, no, it's... I'll refresh the page. Yeah, no.
I can hear it. I'm not sure why you can't hear it, though.
Yeah, like, to me, it's coming out as like...
Weird. Maybe you watch it on Twitter.
Yeah,
sure. Watch it on Twitter.
Sure.
Sounds like the web page is the thing that's causing the problem.
Nope.
You can't hear it?
It basically sounds like demons whispering.
Oh, weird.
Yep.
I don't know if people on the chat can hear it, but I can hear it just
So,
fine.
yeah, I don't know what people in the chat think of these sounds, but yeah, you tell me what you think that sound is, because I think it sounds like demons whispering.
I'm literally hearing it exactly as they're talking. They're talking
That's
totally
super
normally.
weird. That's exceptionally
bizarre.
weird. Because it
but
does
maybe
not
go to the
sound
story
like
and
that
just
for
talk
me.
about what you said.
Okay.
Go back to the story and talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's basically what you said. That's the end of the story. Is just the video.
Mm-hmm.
So that's unfortunate.
Basically, like,
if you can watch it for yourself, then I advise you to do so.
Go for it. But basically, this is the thing. The way that they work, and all throughout COVID, they always told they lied to you. They lied to your freaking face. They told you like, oh no, these vaccines, these jibby jabs are perfect. There's nothing wrong with them. They'll protect you and all that. And I mean, how many people did you and I talk to, Steven, that constantly repeated the things like, oh, these jibby jabs protect you from everything.
Safe and effective.
That's how you
Safe
stop.
and effective.
Safe and effective. Yeah, and of course they do this now years later, after the thing is passed, and like, oh, I guess the science has magically
The
changed.
science has
And
evolved
now-
to show that we are
Yeah.
wrong.
And this is like, this is why anybody who follows these stories knows these are just blatant lies. They're manipulative. They're playing people. It's psyops. Everything about it. This is why, like, you can't trust them because they've lied to you in the past, and they're gonna be like, well, in the future, you can trust us because we're trustworthy. We're the CDC. Yeah, you're basically liars.
You're a joke. You're a joke.
You're a joke. Okay, let's touch on our last story for the news you may have missed. This is from Rebel News. Breaking: Bill C-11 passes Senate. The Upper House passed Bill C-11, the Online Streaming Act, Thursday afternoon by a vote of 52 to 16. One senator abstained, and of course that was the Senate vote. The controversial legislation gives Ottawa the authority to tell broadcasters like YouTube and Netflix what they should and should not recommend to viewers online. I.e., if you're a regular consumer of, like, of YouTube or Netflix, the Mr. Trudeau gets to decide what you see.
Yep.
Isn't that lovely, dear leader? All hail, fearless leader. On March 30th, the bill passed. By the way, when they passed this through the House of Commons, the Trudeau government basically pulled all sorts of shenanigans.
They refused to allow any form of debate.
No debate, no talk, nothing. This government acts like a third-rate, like banana republic, third world country dictatorship. Like, they don't act. It's amazing to me the people that think that this government is on the level.
Yep.
They're a bunch of cheaters, liars, and they will do anything to get what they want. And they're just, it's amazing to me.
It's exceptionally underhanded. I was having conversations with people. Like, there was this fairly, not super prominent, but it was this guy on Twitter, and he's just like, oh my gosh, like, the protests with the postal, the Canada Post, like, that's the CPAC strike, like, that has merits, but the Freedom Convoy did not. And I'm like,
oh boy.
One is the Freedom Convoy, and one is the Freeloader Convoy. Because that's what it is.
Yep.
Which I did steal that line from somebody else, so I'll give them credit. I did not come up with that. I just thought it was funny.
Not that clever.
Sometimes I'm that clever, but usually not with the wordplay. And then we went on this conversation, and then I'm like, and he's like, well, you're probably one of those people that says that, like, Canada's a dictatorship, and I'm like, Canada is a dictatorship.
In practice.
In practice. And I'm like, we don't have free speech in effect. And I'm like, I'm listing all these things.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, like, I don't know why you think this is a dictatorship. Like, these are good things. And I'm like,
okay.
No, they're not.
That's a good thing.
Oh yeah, it was like everything that I would respond with, and I'm like, well, look at this. Like, this is a terrible thing that the police and the government did.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, that's a good thing. And I'm like, are you like, I cannot show you. Like, I show you nasty thing after nasty thing after nasty thing, and every single time you're like, well, they should have gotten worse. That's a good thing.
It shows. It's like, remember that episode we had, I don't know if it was last week or before, on Thursday, but we had that one person commenting, and I'm like, I'm just going to ask you very simply, if a transgender person would, like, rape and abuse and then kill a child, would you condemn that?
How would you react then?
Well, and like they did everything they could to avoid having to answer it, and I'm like, cult. Like, you're literally in the cult.
Well, and every single one of their responses was, well, like, you're trying to dial this down to a simple yes or no answer when this is a thoroughly nuanced question and deserving of like a college level debate. And I'm like, condemning the rape of a child is something that is deserving of a college level debate. I'm like, in what universe?
Well, in their universe, because the way that they operate, and the way that they operate, I'll give you a very simple analogy. Those in the woke leftist cult operate. They basically take simple concepts like there's two genders, male and female, and if the concept was water, was a clear pool of water, they're the ones that are throwing dirt and mud into the water, and she's like, hey, you see, it's not like black and white, it's not clear, it's muddy. They're the ones that muddy the waters. That's basically their approach. They needlessly complicate things that are simple. Should men be allowed to play in women's sports? No, of course not. Nope, they're going to muddy the water. Well, that's just mean, and that's bigoted, and that's like, unscientific, and like, that's just terrible, and you're a horrible person, and I'm like, they muddy the waters. That's how it works. So yeah. So anyways, going back to Bill C-11. Last thing we got to say about that is, what do you think this means for Canada going forward, Stephen?
Well, I think that there's going to be a lot more strict enforcement from these big tech platforms on content posted from Canadians. And they're going to have a lot less scrutiny over what they delete.
Yeah, and I think one of the most obvious examples of them weaponizing this law, because people have commented, people that know about the law have Beaver Fry and the guy from JCCF, John Carpe. They basically said this is step one.
Yep.
You first have to establish that you have the power to do this. Then they'll start adding laws and rules that will force the CRTC to start enforcing this in various ways. And we know that the Trudeau government weaponizes institutions. It's weaponized the CBC. That way the CBC is basically the Canadian Pravda. And then it's going to weaponize the CRTC to basically ban and silence voices that they don't like. Again, just like in America, the Trudeau government's going to try to weaponize and try to silence voices that are going to make it look bad for the next election. Again, they're cheaters, they're liars, they don't play fair. They try to bend every rule and try to complete. We're not dealing with a fair system. We're dealing with people that are more than willing to allow anything that helps them stay in power. Hence why they're downplaying the impact of the whole China, controversies and scandals that came out recently. Because, of course, my theory and my belief, I think Justin Trudeau knew perfectly well what they were doing, and he let it happen because it helps him. That's my theory. I don't think that Justin Trudeau should ever be given the benefit of the doubt because he doesn't care about Canada. He only cares about power. So we'll see with C-11. I think the C-11 is going to, we're going to have to make a lot of adjustments as Canadians going forward. All right, let's finish it up.
Yeah, not a safe place to be. All right, let's go into the Shrewd Check. It's been a while. I know.
Yeah, it has been a while.
It's been a while.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, you can't say that without singing the song. RESPECT.
Silence!
Let me find the stinger. Okay.
All right. So, Shrewd Check. Starting it off with Florida Pride Parade from the Washington Examiner. Florida Pride Parade canceled because it can't comply with anti-lewd law.
Oh, Florida... we need to make one correction there. I think they misspelled won't.
Yes.
Basically.
Well, can't or won't.
No, they
both.
Won't. They won't comply with anti-lewd laws, which is why they refuse to participate.
Yep. So Florida LGBTQ activists recently had to cancel their planned parade because of a pending bill that would prohibit minors from being exposed to lewd behavior. As a general rule, if an event cannot reasonably be expected to protect children from seeing inappropriate content, it's probably best to cancel it.
You would think so.
The legislation, which has passed both chambers and now goes to Governor Ron DeSantis for his signature, prohibits knowingly exposing children to an adult live performance that depicts or stimulates nudity, sexual conduct, sexual excitement, or specific sexual activities listed under the state code. This seems like common sense. Adults should not expose themselves to children or expose children to sexual acts or nudity. Discussions about sexuality should happen in appropriate settings, such as at home, between parents and children. But this posed an article for the Pride Fest this upcoming weekend. The city of Port St. Lucie has decided that with the likelihood that the governor will sign the latest bill into effect, that we will need to be on the side of caution. It has required us to make the necessary change, the Pride Alliance, the Treasure Coast stated, saying that its events would now be only for those 21 and older. We are obviously upset and disheartened that it has come to this. We also regret to announce that we will have to cancel our plans to bring back our beloved parade. Parade should be family friendly.
Can you imagine if they actually, passed this law all over the states?
Yeah.
Pride parades would disappear overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Literally. It's like, it has a double whammy effect.
Yeah.
On the one hand, it exposes them as intentionally wanting to expose children
to lewd and lascivious behavior,
to lewd behavior, and to to nudity and sexuality. And on the other hand, that pride events of all kinds would end immediately. Why? Because, and this is not an insult, this is just an observation. People who are in the LGBT community, all they know how to do is protest, but they don't actually have the courage to basically face consequences for their actions. That is not a common trait among the rainbow people, the rainbow crowd as a whole. They're not willing to basically face the penalties of actual protest. Again, this is why I say it, a shout out to their Pastor Derek Reimer here in Calgary. He's a guy with bravery. He is absolutely brave. He's willing to put his money where his mouth is. That is a guy that I respect, because as much as people try to demonize him, that's a guy who's willing to pay the price
to stand up no matter what.
For standing up for what is right.
Yep.
So, yeah. Now, with this event in mind, this week I saw this video that made the rounds. I saw a TikTok video. And this video is basically a lady ranting about how she has no choice. She has to leave Florida. And she basically goes into a tirade of a giant number of reasons why she has to leave. And all of these are fake talking points from the left.
Yep.
We're going to go through it, and we're just going to take it point by point, because it's 3 minutes, but there's a lot to cover here.
It's just going to be a lot of fun. Let's go for it.
Yeah, let's go for it.
So last night, my girlfriend Kelly and I had a conversation that in my wildest dreams, I would have never imagined that I would be having. We talked about leaving the state of Florida, and not only just leaving, but the fact that we need to start developing a plan to leave on a whim's notice in an emergency situation if things get really bad. And, we've been talking for a while about how do we know when it's that time to go? When is it so obvious that it's so unsafe? And I think for us, this week was really that kicker.
Can you stop it here?
Between the...
Okay. Now, just look at the setup. She's making a sound. Okay, she's making a sound like she's a potential refugee.
Yep.
Right? That's the way she's framing this. I'm the victim. Look at me. I'm being victimized because I'm being forced to flee my country because of safety concerns. Again, when the left used the word safety, about safety, that's a euphemism for something I don't like that I want to eliminate or ban.
Yeah.
Right. And so she's framing this as as she is like a somebody in the middle of a war zone who has to leave and has no choice, or somebody who's being targeted by the Viet Cong coming in and wiping out Vietnamese citizens, and they have to flee their homes in terror and panic. But you could see her, how she's dressed. You could see behind her. She is not exactly a poor little old me kind of person. No. She's leaving because she wants to, but it's because she's an ideological virtue signaler.
Yep.
So let's go into some of the things, okay?
6-week abortion ban, the travel advisories that were put out for members of the LGBTQ plus community.
Okay. Stop there.
Traveling to Florida.
Okay, what do you know about that? So, two things: 6-week abortion ban, and what was the other one?
The travel advisory.
Have you heard about that?
I think I heard something about the travel advisory. So that was put out by the ACLU, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And that was basically just saying it's like, oh yes, like it's becoming like almost physically dangerous to travel to Florida, so we advise against it.
Yeah,
because they're unsafe in their laws and their regulations against Florida, against the LGBTQ.
All right, so
as far as I know.
This from ABC News, Florida travel advisory issued by state LGBTQ civil rights group. Essentially, what it was is that they basically wanted to make it sound like, how a lot of organizations give you travel advisories to travel, like which countries are safe to travel to, and which countries are not. They're trying to basically emulate that and make it sound like Florida's not safe. In other words, any place that doesn't completely say yes to everything that you demand is unsafe. That's the language. That's the euphemism that they use. They won't give me what I demand, hence they're not safe. It's basically trying to portray the state as being oh, you're a big mean bully or something like that. When in reality, the state is doing what its citizens want. Second, the 6-week Florida abortion ban.
Yep.
This woman, first of all, she's a lesbian.
Yeah,
so that doesn't affect her in any way. She's not going to have an abortion because she's a lesbian.
Unless she's cheating.
Unless she's basically having some on the side. But even if she did need an abortion for whatever reason, she is absolutely not going to have a problem leaving the state and getting it elsewhere if she wants. And on top of that, it's 6 weeks. Although it's difficult, it is definitely possible to have an abortion within 6 weeks. All of these are I don't like it, and so I'm leaving because I'm mad.
Yeah.
So, again, the citizens of Florida chose this. She's just saying everyone has to live by my rules.
Yeah.
I don't care what everyone else believes.
Yep. Basic entitled leftist.
And then I think what was the real kicker was finding out yesterday that a new bill has been proposed that would allow medical doctors and insurance companies the ability to deny care to anyone that they choose if they believe that the person they are treating goes against their moral or religious beliefs. And the kicker with this one is that law, if passed, would grant legal protection for the doctors and the insurance companies denying care. Let's also not forget that in Florida
stop there.
Yeah.
Okay, do you know anything about that one?
No. Let's actually just look that one up.
Look it up. Okay, so Florida bill
grants
religious exceptions. Okay, so this is from Rubio from Senate. Rubio introduced bill to protect religious exemptions from vaccine. That wouldn't be it. Which would be last week. That one I actually don't know. Actually, do you know? I don't know if you're.
I don't know what she's talking about. There's a bill that was posted.
Okay, maybe this one. April 26, 2023. Florida to pass strongest medical freedom law in the nation.
Okay.
The Florida legislature is about to pass a bill that will provide the strongest protections of any state against encroachment on medical freedom. This bill will permanently protect Floridians from the biomedical security state. What else? What does it actually do? The bill appears to do what DeSantis promised, which is to make protections from the 2021 special session permanent. Basically, it grants you the ability for for medical freedom. It sounds like. I'm not sure if that's the one she's referring to.
That's the only one that
seems relevant, or maybe it's coming forward and all that. So that one might not be one that we, because obviously a lot of the stuff is happening in Florida, but when she says religious exemptions, it sounds like she doesn't support any kind of religious exemptions. Again, most of these leftists don't. They believe they always this is the way. They always believe that a religious exemption is a complete fraud, and that these people that anybody who's using a religious exemption is only faking it in order to get something else. That's what they always believe, which is nonsense.
Yep.
All right, what's the next one?
We also have permitless carry now. We also have book bans.
No.
We also have the
Okay.
Don't Say Gay bill.
Okay, stop those three.
Oh my gosh.
Three things right there. Three
Okay.
things. Okay, the first one, permitless. So like you don't have. So you're allowed to have a gun without a permit. Is that a bad thing, Stephen?
No. Because if
Okay,
you
why is that
have,
not-
well, if you have a firearms permit or a firearms license, then the government basically decides who can have a firearm. And like, yes, there are certain people that should not have a firearm, but you shouldn't have to jump through hoops to be able to defend yourselves from somebody attacking you. Like there was actually an interesting experience. I think it was either today or yesterday. Somebody tried to enter my parents' home in the middle of the day yesterday.
Middle of the day?
Yeah, my grandfather was the only one home. My mom was like out at the store, and like somebody tried to open the door.
They were like grabbing and pulling and grabbing or something.
Well, no, they partially opened the door, saw that my grandfather was like sitting in the chair, and then they turned around and like went away.
No, they tried to enter. Oh, so the door was open.
Yeah, the door was unlocked.
Okay,
but
well,
they
it's unlocked. Yeah,
they opened it partially, saw that he was there, and then turned around and went away. And like they looked through the window. And then it was like, oh, somebody's here. And it was like, what? Like there is a rise in criminality, and that's becoming obvious across North America. The ability to defend oneself against threats to someone's life and their family is not something which should be reserved for those who jump through a zillion hoops. Like, yes, there are those who should be barred from holding firearms because they have done actions which takes away that right. But you should not say, oh, you need to jump through hoops, and only if the government like really approves of you and like approves of your ideological and moral values, then you can have a gun, which is what the Canadian government is trying to push for. And which is why they're pushing for all this gun regulation, because they're trying to push to take away guns from legal law-abiding gun owners. And then you talk about the other issues which he's talking about, like the book bans, and you're talking about the Don't Say Gay bill. First of all, book bans, that was actually really well addressed in the Freedom Tunes video from last week.
Very well done.
And it was also addressed in, where you have like the really, really underhanded, sleazy looking guy, and he's showing a book to a child. And the mother is like, oh my gosh, like, what are you showing to my child? And they're like, you're trying to ban books. It's like, but this is the crap that they're trying to expose to my kids. And it's like, you can't show that to children. And it's like, what? It's like, no, we don't want to see that. It's like, it's not about banning books. It has everything to do with making sure that there is content that cannot be available for children. And it's the same with the Don't Say Gay bill, or what is it?
Whatever the bill is. Basically, it protects children up to grade 3 from
parental like observation. And anyways, but it's basically just to prevent teachers from bringing up overtly sexual concepts and overtly sexual topics before a child is even remotely close to be able to discuss it in a serious manner.
It's basically the anti-SEL law.
Yes.
Or bill. SEL being social emotional learning, which is basically a completely new system that basically tries to infuse every single lesson in a classroom, hijack the lesson, and turn it into a social justice lesson, and to basically it's a propaganda tactic that schools are using now. That bill basically stops it, which is great.
Let's keep going.
Go for it.
And then there's other talks of things being proposed, such as banning pride festivals in the state.
Nope, wrong. We just addressed that. It's entirely about addressing lewd behavior, and the pride parades and the pride festivals refuse to abide by that because they don't want to stop showing children lewd and lascivious behavior, because guess what? Unfortunately, these people like targeting children. Yeah, they don't want to admit it publicly, but banning and stopping a pride parade because of a law against lewd and lascivious behavior is just like, look at me. I'm not doing this event for some reason, or I'm making it only for adults. And it's like, well, why did it take a law to make this only for adults? Well,
yeah,
like
my coworker this week, and we talked about like the whole drag thing and all that, and he brought up like the Nashville law. I didn't actually get if they banned all drag events, period. And I was like, I don't know if
it was all all public. It was basically the same as Florida. It was all public, adult themed shows and events.
Yeah. So he pointed out the Nashville one, and he said like that is horrible. And I'm like,
what?
Why is that so bad? Even okay, let's assume for a second that you're right, and that's exactly what they're doing. What's really changed? Drag events can still happen. Drag people, like people who dress in drag, are still allowed to live in society. They're just not allowed to do it in public. Like that, they're not stopping them from being anything. It's like they're not saying that they can't exist. You're saying that is the worst thing. That's gonna lead to fascism. He believed that would lead to fascism.
Oh my god!
I'm like, really?
No.
You don't think that's a little extreme? That you can't do this controversial thing in our state, and that's fascism? Like it seemed like a leap. And he did it, at least to his credit, he did it made like, okay, maybe that's a little like stretch. I'm like, yeah, kind of, like maybe that's not fascism.
All right. Let's continue to see what this wacky lady has to say.
Right. And I think the scariest one is the proposed bill that the state of Florida can take emergency protective custody over children if any family member believes that child may be at risk of receiving gender affirming care.
Good.
Or if they are currently in the process of receiving that care, or even if they have a sibling that is receiving gender affirming care. And
no, that's not wrong. We've spoken about this over and over and over again. If a child is being given these puberty blockers, these hormone replacement therapy treatments, they cannot consent because they can never be aware as a child of the long-term damage of these things, and their parents will always try and push them away from believing that they are having these side effects because the parents want to exploit them for power, for money, for attention, because they suffer from a condition. Most likely they suffer from Munchausen by proxy, and they wish to take advantage of these children so they can showcase to all of their lefty friends and all their kind of social justice warrior members that they're involved with the cliques in that, oh, look at how wonderfully woke I am. Look at my child and what I'm doing to them and how I'm embracing their true selves, even though they're only 4.
I think a really good comparison for just to kind of like, point out how absurd this is. Imagine if a family in Florida wanted to take their underage child and get female genital mutilation.
Yeah.
Would you be okay with that? Like, no, because like there are clearly cases where even if a parent thinks, I think this is going to be good for my child in the long run because I have a belief system that tells me that this is good for them, but in reality it's causing the child harm. That's kind of like that. People say like, well, the state shouldn't intervene. I'm like, yes, it should.
Yes, they should.
If the parent is causing harm to their child, they should definitely intervene.
Have a right to
intervene. Totally for that.
They have an obligation to intervene.
An obligation to intervene.
Like that's exactly what the purpose of Child Protective Services is to see a situation which is going. Yeah, unfortunately now it's been weaponized against those who refuse to go along with gender affirming care. And we saw that, of course, with the case of the man in BC, who's now, I believe, still, he's still in battle with the courts and facing multiple years of jail time.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he dared stand up against the medical establishment.
Yeah. This woman, by the way, I bet you if you asked her, she probably would have no problem with the Washington law that's basically the kidnap law.
Yeah.
Which we talked about recently, that if you're in Florida, if you're in Washington, you can officially, like the government can literally kidnap your child if they run away and want to get all these medical interventions and all that. Oh, they can kidnap your child. It's legal kidnapping in Florida, in Washington. She would be totally okay with that they kidnapped your child over there, but kidnapping supposedly here, that's not okay. Like it's It's amazing. And again, reiterating again the fact this woman is a lesbian.
Yeah.
So she likely doesn't have children. If she does, they're not hers. They're adopted, or she got them through in vitro, whatever else, and all that. So ultimately, it's unlikely that this is going to really affect her specifically. Go on.
Okay.
As someone who spent 6 years as a therapist working in the foster care and child welfare system in the state of Florida, I can tell you that there are no resources for the children currently in the system, let alone adding more children to that system who have loving parents and families who are doing the right thing to give them life-sustaining care.
Nope.
It's so
life-sustaining care. Anybody who tries to reference this and tries to say the gender-affirming care is life-sustaining care because, the suicide rates go down. If you look at any study that goes beyond 2 years, then either the suicide rates remain the same as pre-transition or they go up and the rates of anxiety skyrocket even within that first 2 years. So anybody that tries to claim, like surgical and hormone replacement therapy and all these things, they reduce suicidality, they reduce depression, they reduce the mental illness. No long-term study has ever confirmed this.
It's also emotional blackmail.
Oh, it is such emotional blackmail.
Because it's like if somebody comes up to you. Imagine your kid comes up to you, if you have a kid, a teenager, and they come up to you and like, "Mom, I really want a car." And the mom's like, "No, I don't think you can. I don't think that's a good idea. Like, if you don't give me a car, I'm going to kill myself." And then that child killed themselves. And everyone's like, "Oh, well, you're to blame.
You should have bought them a
car. You should have bought them the car, you monster." It's like, that's basically the logic here.
Pure exploitation.
These people, if you don't give them if you don't say yes to every one of their demands, then, you're a terrible, horrible person and you're responsible for them killing themselves. No, the person has very severe mental health issues. They need help, and giving them what they want is not a viable solution. That is absolutely enabling somebody with a very serious problem. So and of course now she's going to use all these like tears, like these crocodile tears. So here we go. Get ready for the waterworks.
Scary and sad to think about leaving my home, leaving my family, my friends, everything that I know, all because the state of Florida
is doing the right thing.
No longer thinks that me being me is acceptable. And so to anyone else going through
Stop there. Okay, so we saw the whole premise at the beginning. She framed it as like, I'm a refugee. I'm forced against my will to leave the state because they're forcing me. Like, I have no choice. No, is any of the things that she brought up, are any of those things making her life are any of those things actually putting her life in peril, in actual peril, not just perceived peril?
Nope.
Like the Don't Say Gay bill, that doesn't affect her. The no abortion probably doesn't affect her. The no pride parades, okay, she doesn't have an event that she can go to. I can't think of anything. Oh, the book banning, well, that doesn't have an effect on her. Like, it's just, I don't like my state. I don't agree with my state's doing, and I'm gonna leave, and it's my state's fault.
Yep.
This is basically the exact same thing as transgender blackmail.
Yep.
If you don't give me what I want, I'm leaving.
It's a form of blackmail. And of course, like, she's trying to paint this as, this is extremist and this is fascist. And attitudes and behavior and dogma like this, yes, some people will leave, but some people, instead of leaving, will feel that they have no way, and they'll be told that they have no way out, and so they will react violently, such as, of course, we've seen in multiple incidents like the Nashville shooter and others in the past year. These events will become more frequent because they're being told that anyone who opposes them in even a very minor, very slight way that doesn't impact them in any realistic, legalistic way, but they just feel that they're being impacted, they will lash out in an exceptionally violent way, and people are going to die because of this rhetoric.
And also remember, like, that she has to leave. But think about how many hundreds of thousands of people have moved to Florida because the government is doing these things, because they believe in what the governor there is doing. What she belongs to a cult, the leftist woke cult, that they believe that it's not just that we don't agree with what you're doing, is you have to do everything by force, and we have to force it on you by like, power of the government and all that kind of stuff. This is why they force it on countries that don't want it. right? These people are so sadly deluded that they believe that it's there's not even a possibility that another valid reason or another valid opinion could exist. It's like their opinion is the only one that exists, and anyone who doesn't agree is evil, crazy, or like a lunatic.
Yep.
Like that's the world that she lives in.
All right, let's finish up the last few seconds,
finish it up.
and then we'll switch over to the next subject.
I just want you to know I'm sending love and support.
Love and support.
Love and support, even though I'm basically just telling people to either leave the state or get violent.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying.
So,
just sending love and support.
Ultimately, this is what happens with this is why this is good for the group chat. There's a video that this is what they do. This is called a what is that thing called? What's it called when people throw out a ton of bad claims, but like all at once. And the goal is to basically drown out the opposition so that they have to answer each and every one. Do you know what that's called, Stephen? It's a logical fallacy.
I'm trying to think.
It's like a mishmash. I don't know if anybody in the chat can help us out. There's a logical fallacy.
There is a name for it.
Where you basically throw out a million or as many like claims as possible, none of which are likely true, and the goal is to basically overwhelm your opponent way too much so that they can't respond. Anyways, go on to the next thing, and I'll see if I can look it up.
Yeah. Anyways,
a Gish Gallop.
A Gish Gallop. Okay. Gish Gallop. Anyways, so now we move on to the weekly exposure. So this week we're exposing some pedophiles, which just makes us just so happy.
They're maps, Stephen. Come on, they're maps.
Clearly. I'm not calling them maps. That's what you read when you're actually trying to find away places.
Okay, so I will say this, I've noticed that the left is their go-to strategy for everything is they like to use weaponized language. That's why they don't say gay bill. Obviously, any logical person knows that that's nonsense. That's not in the bill. That's not even what the bill's about. But they weaponize the language to frame it as bad, right? But maps, I don't know who came up with that, but that was a very bad one. It's yeah, you kind of failed on that one. It's not catchy. It doesn't catch. It doesn't even sound good. Gay, that was a made up term to replace homosexual. But that one was at least smart because okay, gay meant happy, in old use, and they basically appropriated that word to basically mean, to be a fun and flowery kind of enjoyable kind of
Anyways,
again, maps is terrible.
Maps is terrible. So, from the Post Millennial, Any No reports Georgia trans person faces more than 50 child abuse felonies following arrest at daycare.
Yep.
Trans person suspected of child sex abuse was arrested in an in-home child daycare in Paulding County, Georgia. Dion Blake Keaton, an 18-year-old transgender person who identifies as a woman, was first arrested by Dallas police on February 23rd on suspicion of 3 felony counts of sexual exploitation of children and felony purchase, possession, manufacture, distribution, or sale of controlled substances. Keaton was found with a white powder at the daycare believed to be meth, according to police report. Keaton's phone and laptop were confiscated as part of the arrest. Following an investigation on those devices, Keaton was rearrested on March 31st. So he was let go.
Mm-hmm.
He was let go after suspicion of sexual exploitation of children, and he had meth at the daycare.
Very, very serious, dangerous drug.
And he was let go. Are you seriously?
Yep.
This is this is what causes reoffenders, people. This
Mm-hmm.
is what causes problems in society when you take people who are really, really bad, and then you're just like, well, let's just let you out because maybe you'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Keaton was arrested weeks ago. The daycare-connected nature of the case and the transgender identity is now being reported exclusively by the Post Millennial. Well, that's not any surprise there, because that's what happens with the far left, is they will not expose any crime done by their protected victimhoods.
Mm-hmm.
According to the police report of the first arrest in February, Keaton was found at his residence. Come on, Post Millennial.
It's you know what's going on, Stephen. Matt Walsh was a cautionary tale of what they're doing. is now all these platforms, all these places are basically making laws that you have to play the game. And so the post-millennial, in order to try to be able to be shared as widely as possible,
I know,
is playing the game only because they want exposure. But this is the world we're heading into. If you don't play the game, you're going to have some serious penalties.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not saying that anybody should. Obviously, I don't play the game.
No,
I refuse to play the game. That's a line for me. But they're going to make this more and more punitive. Just so you know.
So
Anyways, go on.
this person's mother ran the New Beginnings Learning Center, which was a daycare. So Keaton's first bond was set at $11,000, which was quickly paid, and he was released within hours, according to the sheriff's department. After his second arrest on suspicion of 50 additional child sex crime charges, bond was set at $27,000, which was also paid 4 days later. A spokesman for the sheriff's officer told the Post-Millennial,
paying this
I have
amount?
no idea, that his arrest
Good
in March.
Lord.
Keaton told the jail that he is trans. He was placed in a single-cell unit. When this journalist called the daycare where Keaton once resided and spoke with the suspect's mother and daycare operator, she denied knowing Dion Keaton. He doesn't live here. I don't even know who that is. When he asked if Dion was related to her, he said no. However, Facebook post by Pamela shows she uploaded photo of the people identified as her adult children, which included Dion. The two also tagged each other in posts. So this is the mother who runs the daycare?
Mm-hmm. Sounds pretty terrible, huh?
Yeah, like this is just bad all around.
It's child endangerment at the very least.
Yeah.
If nothing happened, but it's just this is the kind of thing. The problem is that obviously we've talked about this before. It's a very real reality, unfortunately. There is a very dark underbelly and like a ton of skeletons in the closet about. If you actually look at the numbers of how many offenders, emerge from the transgender community, how many of those are like child sex or like child porn or child exploitation kind of felons and all that, and the percentages are brutal.
Yep,
like it is absolutely brutal. And again, none of this means obviously that this applies to all. Obviously, nobody's saying that.
Yep,
but there's a problem.
Because
a very high percentage of people within this
community,
this group, identifiable group that people identify, they are responsible for a lot of problems in society, and it's something that we need to basically like get more awareness and exposure of that this happens. This is why this is part of the this week's exposure.
Yep, and then the other part of this week's exposure is talking about an individual by the name of Leigh Fink. So, a transgender Minnesota lawmaker introduced his bill removing anti-pedophile language from state's Human Rights Act. State Representative Leah Fink told Fox News Digital the language never should have been included in the statutory definition in the first place. So, introduced a measure that would remove language from the state's Human Rights Act that currently declares pedophiles are not included in protections based on sexual orientation. Proposed language has shocked and bewildered Republicans, but the bill's author said nothing in the text would weaken pedophile laws. The Take Pride Act was introduced earlier this year by State Representative Leah Fink and the first transgender legislator in Minnesota House history. The bill would amend the Human Rights Act, which is described by the state as one of the strongest civil rights laws in the country. It protects against discrimination based on sexual orientation, defined as having or being perceived as having an emotional, physical, or sexual attachment to another person, without regard to the sex of that person, or having or being perceived as having an orientation for such attachment. The law also includes this caveat: sexual orientation does not include physical or sexual attachment to children by an adult. That language would be removed under Fink's proposal.
That's in the infamous words of the late Norm Macdonald. That sounds like a bunch of commie gobbledygook.
Yeah. So, reach for comment Wednesday. Fink defended the bill and told Fox News Digital the measure updated its outdated language that incorrectly ties pedophilia to a person's sexual orientation. Nothing in the bill changes or weakens any crimes against children or the state's ability to prosecute those who break the law. Of course, pedophilia is not a sexual orientation. The language never should have been included in the statutory definition in the first place. Crimes against children are located in Minnesota's criminal statutes, and again, they remain unchanged. Well, you say that. There's a difference between saying something and having something in practice. You can say, oh yes, like, pedophilia is not an orientation. Okay, then why does your statute, Why does your bill essentially make them a protected class as orientation, as a sexual identity? Oh no, it doesn't reduce, like, it doesn't harm children. It makes, like, child sex laws are still in place, except it makes having sexual relations or having the intent of sexual relations with a child a protected, those individuals are now protected classes. Protected classes are much harder to go after with crimes. Because people that feel that within those classes, if they think that the police are coming after them, then they can much more easily claim discrimination, harassment, and bullying, and have it, instead of being a simple complaint against the department, it becomes a human rights complaint. And there's a tribunal involved now.
Yep.
Because, oh, well, I think you're targeting me. Why? Well, because pedophilia and attraction to children is being a protected. That's a protected class now.
That's how they're gonna get around.
Yeah, that's how they're gonna get around it. That's how they're gonna interpret it.
You have to remember that there's a lot of different pushes from a lot of different areas that they're trying to do. One, they're trying to go with this, the children have the right to consent. Like talking points about like transgender treatment, whatever. Because if they can convince the national public that children are fully capable of consenting to sex change surgeries, then they can much more easily make the case that children can consent to sex with adults. Okay, that's one way. The second way, they're trying to make it they're trying to come up with this sob story that, oh, those poor people who left children. Oh, those poor people, they're victims. They're victims of society and a lot of like stigma and all that kind of stuff. And they should be allowed to have, any kind of sexual relationship with a person of any age. That, like, any reasonable person. There's a reason why there's a natural revulsion to that, because we all understand that there is no scenario in which an adult can have a fully healthy and fully normative sexual relationship with a child.
Yep.
Okay, psychologically, physically, sexually, in a lot of different ways, we know it's not possible. A child is not able to consent. They don't even know what that means. But these people are pushing for this kind of stuff. And by the way, I remember listening to a podcast. They talked about the kind of pornography that emerges in trans focused kind of groups.
Weird.
It is beyond bizarre, and a lot of them deal with fantasies of children, and there's a reason why a lot of there's been a lot of recent things where transgender individuals are suddenly coming out as little girls or babies.
Yep.
Because that's a fetish that's very prominent within the transgender kind of dark web and all that.
Yeah.
And it's being lived out by a lot of people nowadays. So watch out for that. It's getting worse. It's getting far more dangerous. But yeah, those are some of the things and trends and people that you have to watch out for. They're everywhere.
Okay.
Now, we started with the two exposures, transgender individuals. Again, more and more are being added to the list of sex offenders and people who are actively advocating for pedophilia. But we wanted to finish on a high note, or a positive note. And this is somebody I forget what this was, but he was basically calling out major editors of major publications. And his little rant that he did at this event was so beautiful. We just want you to enjoy it and just revel in it.
Alrighty.
Take it away, Steve.
Okay, just gonna switch over. Let's play.
The one with Seymour Hersh, because it's a policy and press hall event. So shouldn't we be talking about the Nord Stream, since that's the biggest story of the century? And you guys, you have the executive editor of the New York Times there who came out with a phony story to try and block Seymour Hersh. It's just kind of funny how that happened, did you even acknowledge Seymour Hersh? All of you are executive editors of papers that broke Pentagon, My Lai, Watergate. Is this the same papers or not? Is there anything you've gotten right in the last 20 years, or am I mistaken about that? It's just kind of funny because Iraq, wrong. Syria, wrong. Russiagate, really wrong. Okay, I mean, the list goes on and on. So the last thing you could do to try and actually fix your reputation is acknowledge that through leaks, we had to find out that Zelensky was going to bomb Moscow on the anniversary. I mean, if you're so impartial, shouldn't you at least say, right, that Zelensky was going to bring us on the verge of World War III? That seems pretty fair. While Julian Assange rots in prison, all of you got, fat checks because he's in jail for doing your job. And you know what? Tucker Carlson ain't no Seymour Hirsch. But he did something you guys are scared to do. Speak the truth and actually be critical of the war. Which is why he was actually fired from Fox. Because you are all cowards. Every single one of you. None of you have actually had any relevancy. And you know what? The mainstream press is now dying. Nobody's ever going to listen to you again. You have no credibility with the public. The only people who care about what you have to say are elite assholes who have nothing productive to say anymore. And it's dying off. So, will you at least say something, either about Nord Stream or Ukraine or the fact that Zelensky brought us to the verge of World War III and the only reason we knew about that was through leaks? Go ahead. It's a free speech event, right? You guys are the press. Let's say something here. Mr. Khan, come on. You're the executive editor of the New York Times, I'm just trying to get into some good trouble here, man. Woo. Listen, Karen, get out of my face for a second. I got to talk to these gentlemen. Okay. Well, I just want to hear what they have to say. Go ahead. I'm done.
There's the Karen, right in his face.
Wait your turn. You can project if we can.
I think it's important to hear everybody's point of view.
Yeah.
So thank you.
All right.
I do think that we need to give our moderator a chance to ask other questions.
We're on the verge of World War III.
We're not doing that. Let's go. Really, thank you.
Say something about this bombing. We blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. Listen.
Dang, son. That's how it's done. Nicely done.
Confronting those who are printing lies.
Well, it's amazing. Like, do you see the reception that he was?
Oh, like everybody there. Like it seemed as though almost everybody who was responding or who was in that auditorium was against him. Every single one was like, "Shut up, go away." It's like, yeah, nobody wanted to actually have these mainstream elitists and these media corporatists be challenged on the lies which they have printed, the lies which they have published, and the dangerous things which they have allowed to happen because they have either refused to print various stories or they have published obviously fake stories which caused either a panic or it caused people to be in danger because they wanted to have a certain narrative. And things happened which they claimed to be out of their control, but in reality, they just cared about their narrative more than they cared about people's lives.
I love the way that all the editors were sitting there, like very uncomfortable. Like,
what do we say
talk about that? We're supposed to follow the narrative, It's it's interesting because even CNN. Robots. Yeah, even CNN, it's trying to revive its image as legitimate news because they knew that they basically went the completely wrong way with all their opinion based editorialism, and even they're having a tough time getting back to being legit. But the New York Times, Washington Post, whatever these major publications are, they have been so completely and totally compromised and captured over the last dozen years that they are no longer legitimate sources of news. They're not. Every so often you might see a glimmer of some reporting that's actually not bad. The last one I can remember where I think you and I both gave wow, kudos to New York Times for actually doing this. That New York Times did a deep dive report into the Kyle Rittenhouse incidents, and they just went through a full breakdown of everything that happened, and we were like, "Whoa, what the heck happened here?" Out of left field at New York Times, it was crazy. But for the most part, they are yeah, the most legacy
News
newspapers
outlets.
had. Yeah, like as far as TV ones, and most papers, like major like publications, are basically captured. They're all captured, which is why a lot of people think of them as like American Pravda. And here in Canada, there are very few that are not captured and
paid off.
Like now that now the C11 is passed, it's going to be even harder for them to basically get any kind of like any kind of exposure.
Yep.
So Rebel News, we love you, but yeah, it's going to be tough. I don't know how they're going to do it. Rumble will be interesting because obviously, like, the
Rumble still has to answer to its backers and its stockholders, but we'll see.
No, actually they don't, because they gave the middle finger to France. France was like, we want you to like regulate your content, this way, and they said "les f you," basically. And I was like, good for Rumble. Like, they basically are not allowed in France because France tried to tell them what to do, and they're like, no, f you.
Okay,
we're done here. So good for Rumble.
Alrighty, that's what we're gonna end today's show. We have been going on for about an hour and 45 minutes. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you've been following along in the live stream and on the chat, then the chat has not been as lively as it has been in previous weeks, but sometimes that's a good thing because there's been a distinct lack of crazy. So that's a good thing as well. So if you're wanting to follow us on our regular video platforms, then you can check out on mainly Rumble, but also BitChute and YouTube. And we do publish some things on YouTube because there is some traction on there as well. You can also check us out on our website at theshrewddudes.com, where you'll find lots of blog posts, lots of sources, everything of note in our specialty segments. And then you can also check us out on our text platforms such as Gitter, Twitter, Parler, and Facebook. So just let us know what we're doing. Drop a comment, drop a link, give us a message. If you want to communicate with us in another way, or if you potentially want to do a special segment on the show where you join us for a certain thing, then we'll keep you in mind.
Get on here.
Get on. Well, maybe not, but we'll see.
Or get on up.
Or maybe we might do it so that once every couple months we'll just have an open session where it's like, yep, anyone can join. We'll just have an open discussion about whatever people want to talk about.
Do it on Discord.
Yes, on Discord.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Alrighty. So that's how today's going to go. And Danny, sign us out.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We are the Shrewd Dudes, and we always like to remind you that why be rude when you can be shrewd instead? We'll see you on Tuesday for our Tuesday News Day. And until then, God bless.
Have a great weekend, everybody.